I'm going to address some of the comments that we've heard here today. I think one of the examples was sent to me, a comment from Arthur as a shop steward. He said that he can make wins, he can get gains, and there's always a problem where, as a worker or as a delegate, you can only go so far, you can only make certain gains. The boss complains, basically saying you're asking for too much, while the workers want more. But all these type of questions and points, similar to what Gino has said, is a product of the limitations of the trade union struggle and the idea and the conception that trade union activity can actually make a permanent advance for the working class. The question for the working class today is, and it has been for a whole period, as explained by the previous speakers, the trade union bureaucracy doesn't function as an organisation to defend conditions or advance workers' rights, be they democratic. Any form of activity on the workplace is now eliminated. You've got no rights to stop work even on major safety problems. Everything's put in the hands of another body within the workplace, taken away from the workers to defend their own safety, their own health and their own rights. What's needed is a political perspective that the party offers. Ken raised a similar point, that the knowledge that the party brought to him and examples such as myself, it is a way forward to understand the means that which the capitalist system exploits workers, and who plays a role in that exploitation. The trade union bureaucracy for a whole period played the role, as we've outlined here, as a policeman in the working class to limit the struggle of workers. Workers who become delegates often find themselves in the position where they've got to make the choice, where they fight not just the company, but also the officials that are alongside them around bargaining tables, because the officials always pressure a shop committee member or a shop committee as a whole. If there's a number of delegates, the individual delegate comes under pressure to perform an assistant to the official to sell out the membership, to take your friendship with the workers you work with and go around the workplace. This is a concrete example of what happens, and tell them we've gone as far as we can go, we can't get any more, we can't do it any further, we've got to accept what's offered. And many times what offered, it turns out at a trade-off, a deal. Workers know they've got to give up things to make a small monetary gain. They've got to give up conditions to make a small monetary gain. As Arthur says in his comment, workers are too heavily indebted, they've borrowed heavily. He mentions living week to week on 3K clear earnings. I don't know what workers live on 3K clear earnings, but even then it's an example, if that does happen, they've borrowed too much if they can't live on that. But anyway, being serious, the understanding of the need of a new form of struggle, and it is one of becoming a member of a political party such as ours. The step towards that, workers should join and build rank and file committees in their workplace, but these committees have to be clearly understanding that there needs to be an expansion of the political understanding and the growth of the knowledge of ordinary workers on what is the form of exploitation they live under, capitalism. The danger of war is a real, a very serious danger, as has been explained. And, the day-to-day struggle in the workplace, if the working class does not have a political body and a strengthening of its conceptions of how it's going to fight, it will become the cannon fodder in a third imperialist war. And it's not just a matter of going from day to day. Workers will have to make sacrifices to defend their families and their lives against capitalist war. I think, as Arthur says, a protracted strike causes factions within the union movement, and it does within the workplace. Everyone sees, if they study different struggles that have happened in the United States in particular, the same agreement is brought before the workers in the aero industry, in car industry, the same happens here. 80% reject it, higher, 90% reject it when the officials put the argument. But over a period of browbeating, financial struggle to live day to day on minuscule strike pay arrangements, workers are gradually beaten down because of the economic pressure. And, you know, this, through my many years in many workplaces that or a number of workplaces where I worked at as a delegate, a similar tactic continually happens. And if you do stand out as an individual opposing the officials, there's an attempt to have you sacked, they side with the bosses, have you blacklisted so you can't get work. These are the historical method that trade union militants have been, you know, persecuted under, not just by the employers, not just by the political layers within Labor or the Liberals if they're in power, but the state as a whole, for the use of courts and many methods to stop workers from being able to speak out. As an individual, a working person is very limited to how they can defend the conditions of workers at any time with trade union activity. But in this current period, it's virtually impossible. Other than day-to-day small discussions with management, the real questions cannot be solved without the assistance of a political party and a movement and a perspective. And that's the one that the Socialist Equality Party fights for, and it's the real way forward. And just in finishing, you know, we make up a small amount when we fight for an enterprise bargaining agreement. Well, I very much doubt it. You know, most workers have not made up any gains or had any improvements in their conditions for decades, really. There's been a constant backsliding, limited wage rises, always a small percentage of the real inflation rate. And, you know, with high mortgages, interest rates, all the things that the labour rights have promised to help solve and fix, none of it's dealt with. There's no intention of dealing with it because, as what's been explained in this meeting, war and mass spending on weapons of war is what the ruling elite are proposing. And I just say to Arthur to, you know, consider contacting the party if he's not already doing it and discuss further, you know, with us and consider his position in you know, becoming more educated politically, you know, an important question of socialism and internationalism and the unity of workers around the world. I think he, you know, would find it very enlightening on, you know, how to really deal with society as it currently stands. Because simple trade union activity is not a way forward. In fact, participating in the methods of the union bureaucracy and the apparatus, a worker inevitably becomes a tool of this apparatus and is an adjunct suppression of you know, their own workers in the workplace, even if they think they're not. Without a perspective, without a political movement, that's where a working person can end up.